Hi there, it's Justin Seitz from automatingosint.com, and I'm going to teach you how to set up Searx inside of a virtual machine where we can also do all of our coding, and then you can just leave that virtual machine running to do all of your keyword monitoring that we're going to cover in this blog post. So it's pretty straightforward. The first thing you need to do is download VirtualBox. So if you go to virtualbox.org, just click the big download button, and then you're going to see these links here. So if you're on Windows, obviously use Windows, OS X, or Linux. In this case, I use a Mac, so I would pick the OS X link, and you're going to see it starting to download. And then you're just going to run that installer as you would any other installer, and that's going to get you going. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to use Ubuntu. So if you go to ubuntu.com and just go to their download section, you're going to get presented with this page. The current release at the time of this video is 1604, as you can see. You click the download button, and if you want to donate, that's great. Feel free to do so. Otherwise, just go all the way down to Not Now, take me to the download, and then it's going to start download for you. So this is going to be an ISO file that we're going to use in VirtualBox to actually install Ubuntu into a virtual machine. So if we just minimize my browser here, this is VirtualBox. So you can see I have a couple of other virtual machines that I've created to do dark web investigations, but in this case we actually want to create a new virtual machine. So depending on your version of VirtualBox, yours might look identical to mine, it might look a little bit different, but if you have a new button, you'll click it here. Otherwise, use the machine menu. So at the top of VirtualBox in Mac, of course you can't see it right now, but it's the machine, and then just go new. You'll use that menu item to create a new virtual machine. So if we click new, what we're going to do here is we're going to call this virtual machine Searx, and we're going to say the type is Linux, and it's Ubuntu 64-bit. All right, so if we click continue, what I recommend, depending on your machine, is to increase the amount of memory that it can use. Now, I can safely use 2 gig of RAM on my machine. I have a beefier MacBook Pro. You can adjust this setting later, but if you set it at 2, most modern machines are going to be happy with 2 gig of RAM, which is great. So the next thing we have is, do we want to create a virtual hard drive? And we do. So leave the middle option selected here and click create. And we're going to click continue because we want to use a virtual box disk image. And this again is something you can choose. Dynamically allocated means that it's going to kind of dynamically grow the hard drive, the virtual hard drive, as you need to. A fixed drive is going to create the entire hard drive, the virtual hard drive, for you all at once. So it can take a few minutes to do that. But typically the fixed hard drives actually run a bit faster. So in my case, I have a bit of a higher performance machine, so I'm okay with dynamically allocated. If you click fixed size, just expect it to take a little bit when it creates it. I also set this to 10 gig. Just to be safe. Again, most modern hard drives have lots of room, and this isn't an issue. And then we click create. And so now you're going to see that it's actually created this virtual machine on the left. So congratulations, you've created your first virtual machine. Now we actually need to make it install Ubuntu. Now how we do that is we actually simulate putting that Ubuntu ISO that we've downloaded into the CD-ROM drive. So I know that CD-ROM drives are not something that we see a lot of anymore, but as you'll see here, I just click this little storage link, and that brings me to this page here. And you can see right now, if we look at the little CD icon, it says empty. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually want to fill that with the Ubuntu ISO. So if we click the little CD-ROM drive right here, and I already have mine selected. So when you click choose a virtual CD DVD disk file, it's just going to pop open, and then you're going to go to your downloads directory, and you're going to select that ISO file, that Ubuntu 1604. So in this case, I have it already. All right, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to click OK. And now we're actually ready to begin creating Ubuntu on this drive. And all we have to do is click the start button. So you can see that it's starting to boot up into the Ubuntu installer. We'll just give it a second. Move this over so you can see it a bit better. All right. Now I'm going to be editing this video a bit so that you don't have to watch me download every single package and do the entire installation, but I just want to show you the initial kind of configuration here. I'm going to move my screen over so that you can see it. All right. Okay, so you can go try Ubuntu, and what that's going to do is actually use a live environment, so that means anything you do on this virtual machine will not be saved because it's just running off the CD-ROM. And what we want to do is we want to install Ubuntu. All right, so again, you have some options here. You can download updates while installing Ubuntu. This is going to take a little bit longer for your Ubuntu installation to work. You can also install some third-party software and drivers. Again, I don't find either one of those are necessary for the most part, so I'm going to click continue. And you want to leave this option here, erase disk and install Ubuntu. This is only referring to your virtual machine. Don't worry, it's not going to erase your hard drive. So we're going to say install now. We're going to leave that available. And we're going to click continue here. And you can see that it's pegged me as being in Saskatchewan, Canada, and that's actually correct. And I am speaking English. All right, so what I would set for options here, this is totally up to you, but I'm going to say my name is Searx. I'm going to say my computer name is Searx. My username is Searx. I'm going to say my password is Searx even. And that is going to set all of these options for me so that when you go to log into this virtual machine, that's what they are. Now, of course, if you're going to make this virtual machine accessible to the world, you probably want to pick some different usernames and passwords. But for our purposes, because this is only going to run locally on my machine, I'm going to leave it as it is. And I can even select login automatically if I wanted to, if I just wanted it to automatically log me in when I boot this machine up. I'm going to click continue. And now it's actually going to go through the process of installing everything. So I'm going to take a pause here on the video, and when everything is done copying and installing, just leave this run as you will, and then you can pause the video, and when I come back, we're going to actually continue on with our setup. All right, through the power of video editing, we now have come to the end of the installation, and you'll see this little screen that says you got to restart. So we click restart now. And then it's going to ask you to remove the installation medium and press enter, which we're just going to hit enter on our keyboard. And now it's going to boot up directly into our virtual machine. Any second now. And again, this could take a little bit longer, or it could be a little bit faster, depending on how powerful your machine is. And definitely, the big thing is that when you start to run multiple virtual machines, you definitely can see it will require a beefier machine, something with a little bit faster processor and more memory. All right, so this is our desktop. Remember, I set the option that said login automatically. If you didn't do that, then you're going to have to click on login and you're going to type in your password. Now, this is kind of like the equivalent of the start menu or the dock, but for Linux. And what we want to do is actually drop into a terminal. So if you just type the word terminal in, as I have, and click terminal. All right, so this is where we're going to do some of our setup. So I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger if I can operate my mouse. All right, so this is our terminal, and this is where we can begin to enter some commands that we'll want to do. So the first one we'll do is sudo apt get update, and this is going to get the repositories updated and ready for us to download packages from. So that's all we're doing here. And then we're actually going to do something that's going to save us a little bit of time later. So instead of you having to continually copy and paste items into your not copy and paste, but type them out, we want to enable the ability to be able to copy and paste out of our host machine into our virtual machine. The alternative is for you to browse to the blog post using Firefox here, but I always like to do to install these tools so that we can just copy and paste straight from our host directly into our virtual machine. So we're going to go sudo apt get install virtualbox guest dkms. All right. And just hit yes and hit enter, and that's going to carry on downloading and installing it. And then sadly, what we have to do is actually reboot the virtual machine once the installation is done so that we can actually get the copying and pasting working. All right, so now it's done installing the tools and we can just go reboot. Okay, while it's doing that, what we want to do is actually, we have to set one little setting. So we select our Searx virtual machine here. It's still booting up, that's all good. And we're gonna go settings, and we have to go into advanced. So under the general part, we go into advanced and make sure shared clipboard is set host to guest. So that means that we can copy from our host, our actual physical machine, and paste into our virtual machine. If you wanted it to be bidirectional, meaning that you can go from inside to your host or in both directions, you can set that. It's totally up to you. I just use host to guest, and we're going to click OK. And if we just go back into our virtual machine, which is now booted up, we're going to crack open terminal again. And if you want, if you want terminal just to be here, you can lock it to the launcher so it just stays there. You don't have to keep using the little search bar at the top. All right, so just to test, I'm gonna copy from my host and I'm gonna paste into here so you can see paste. There we go. Now these are all the packages that are required to get started with setting up Searx. So I'm just gonna hit enter. It's gonna ask me for my password, which you'll remember I just set to Searx. And it's going to go, blah, there's a whole bunch of stuff we need to install, and I'm going to click yes. I'm going to type yes by hitting Y and then enter. And then it's going to start downloading and installing all of the packages that we need to set up Searx, including some Python stuff. Searx is primarily run off of Python, which is awesome. You can see it's grabbing all these packages, and this is kind of part of that initial setup was making sure that all the repositories where these packages are pulled down from are all up to date so we don't run into any problems. This can take a couple of minutes or it can take a couple of seconds depending on your setup. All right, so we've downloaded the prerequisites. Now what we want to do is we're going to clone the Git repository from the Searx team down onto our machine. So how we do that is we go git clone https github.com/ASCII moo. Again, you can copy and paste this if you want. Searx.git. All right. So it's going to clone that into the Searx directory. Okay. So again, to get a directory listing in Linux is just ls-la, and we can see our Searx directories right there, or folder, depending on what's easier for you to remember. So we're going to change into that directory by going cd Searx and hitting enter. All right. Now there's a little script in here that we can use to download all the packages and get everything set up some more. So we go /manage.sh, and then we use the command update packages. And that's going to start grabbing a bunch of Python Python modules and anything that needs to be compiled that will handle doing that as well. And so this can take a minute or two to operate. We're going to use the magic of video editing again, and I'm going to let this run. And when it's done, so you can hit pause right away, and then when it's done, you can rejoin me when I stitch the videos back together. All right, voila, welcome back. Now it's all done installing all these Python packages, and it's telling us, hey, there's a newer version of pip. We're not really worried about that right now. Pip is the Python package management system that actually was doing all of that work, doing the downloading and installing. Now there's one other thing we want to do. There's a key that gets set in your Searx settings. And so what we're going to do is copy and paste the command to actually replace that key with something random. So we're just going to do that now. So it's done that. And now we're actually ready to rock and roll with Searx. So it's already installed. Everything's ready to go. And we can actually test if it's going to work or not. So we're going to go cd into Searx. Again, this is, if you want to look at the full directory of where we're at right now, we're in home, Searx. I know, it's a little confusing, but this is where we're at now. And if we actually go Python web app, nothing's going to happen. But like magic, if we crack open our Firefox, All right, so it's going to just come up with the start page. And you should have full internet access here within your virtual machine. So you can go to Google or wherever just to test that, but it should be working. But now on localhost 8888, Searx should be running. Now this is really cool because we actually now have our own little meta search engine that we can perform searches on. So you can see the power of Searx is the fact that it actually reaches out to multiple search engines and pulls back results for you. So that includes Google, Bing, Yahoo, and others that you can configure. This is not an extensive tutorial on how to use and configure Searx, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. It's very cool. But the real power comes from the fact that we actually have the ability to perform these queries and get the results back, for example, as JSON. So this looks like a big mess, but think about the fact that we're able to write code that will talk to our local little Searx installation and say, okay, we want to search for jms.py. That's my Twitter handle. Y'all should follow it. And it's going to tell us, hey, we found 277,000 results. There's some actual search suggestions. So you can think about the automation capabilities here where you could actually pull back the suggestions and then do automated secondary searches. And then again, using code, begin pulling back the results from that. And we can maybe get into that in a blog post in the future. But the other thing we can look at is the fact that we now have the ability to monitor these search engines and parse all of this JSON to make some sense out of it to see, is jms.py moving up and down in the search engines? Have we discovered a new URL where that keyword has been discovered? So you think about using IP addresses, or if you're in charge of your company's security, you could actually be monitoring a whole bunch of different keywords for your own company. You could be monitoring host names, you could be monitoring other things. And of course, we're going to tie this in with Pastebin so that we can perform kind of keyword monitoring along both of these platforms, Pastebin in more real time, and of course Searx is a more historical thing or an overall movement. This is really powerful. So one other thing you can do, if you want to do all of your code writing right inside of this virtual machine, you can do that very simply by, what I recommend you do is going to wingide.com, and you can download Wing IDE Professional. It is worth the money to pay for it. I don't get anything for doing that. If you sign up to my master course, you do get a copy of Wing Professional, which is $250 American, but is worth it. You can grab the Ubuntu Debian package, and what I like to do is just save the file, so it's going to download it. I'll show you real quick how to get it installed. My Python students are familiar with this process already. So Searx is running in this terminal here. We'll just leave it. And what we can do is actually just go terminal, new terminal. All right, that'll pop open a second one for us. And we're going to cd tilde. So that's the little curly thing right by the number 1 on your keyboard. We're going to go into downloads, and then we're going to go sudo dpackage -i wing. It's going to ask you for your password. You're going to say no problem. It's going to do this. It always does this where it says it's got dependency problems. So what we can do is go sudo apt-get -f install, and that's just going to solve those dependency problems. We're going to say yes. So that's sudo apt-get -f install. All right. And now actually if we go, we can close this off. And if we go here, we can go Wing into our little search bar. There's Wing IDE Professional. Cool. Now you have Wing IDE installed. They're going to give you 30 days to use it with the professional version. They have other discounts for students and other stuff as well. Feel free, if you use a different Python development environment, go ahead and install it into your virtual machine. That's totally fine. And of course, now you have Searx deployed. You can use it for your own purposes, or you can move on to challenging some of the code that we're going to write in this blog. And of course, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can reach me at justin@automatingosint.com. Thanks so much for watching.